On today's episode, I go behind the life of Stoke On Trent born Gary Mellor. Gary is founder of Beswick Sports. He is a qualified lawyer and sports agent. He advises football and cricket worlds and has close links in athletics, snooker and golf. He has been involved in numerous contractual negotiations and has stars on his books such as Jay Rodriguez and Tom Edwards. Gary has also lived a childhood dream. Alongside Phil Rawlins, he founded a Major League Soccer team, Austin Aztecs. This has since moved down to Orlando under the name of Orlando City Football Club. Finally, Gary is a lifelong Stoke City fan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Behind the Life of Gary Mellor. Gary, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. As well as can be expected given the current circumstances.
And how are you finding it? Are you working from home or going into the office?
Mainly from home. We've got the law firm, as you said, Beswick's Legal on Festival Park, and we've got the sports office there as well, just a couple of doors down. So we have a skeleton staff in, so I'll pop in and make sure everyone's okay. We're trying to make sure that we keep everybody safe and well. I think the important thing is we come out, we went in with it, isn't it, if we can.
Exactly. Well, let's say thank you so much for coming on the show after I think I dropped you a tweet a couple of weeks ago. So the concept of Behind the Life is where I talk to interesting people who've led interesting lives. And your life, Gary, just, I've researched you like mad over the last week, and you've had, I don't know if you ever have time to sort of, do you have time to sort of step back and reflect on what a life you have led so far?
Probably not. I mean, I think that sometimes you have your moments, especially at times like this when you don't know what the future holds for everybody. And it is nice. We've been very lucky to be close to a lot of special sporting events and special people over the last 20 plus years. And I suppose, behind every, you need a bit of luck in this life. But I do believe the harder you work, the luckier you get. So, and that's not always the case, but that's if you can put the effort in quite often, you start moving the right direction.
Gary, completely agree with you. You're a born and bred Stokey from the north of the city. What was your upbringing like as a child there?
Well, my dad's side were miners, and my mum's side really was sort of, my mum's dad was a boxer, but also worked in Twyford's and worked in he was a labourer really, piecework, I suppose. Some people won't understand piecework nowadays, but that was quite common then. And at the age of 4, we moved to the south of the city, so I went to primary school, which is in Handford. Then was lucky enough, 2 good sports schools then, Priory, then Trentham High. Trentham High produced quite a few professional footballers.
Yeah.
It was a golden era for Stoke in terms of professional footballers as well. I mean, I was just going through it the other day. Mark Chamberlain, obviously. Had Mark Bright, who was the same age as myself. Robbie Earle. Lee Chapman, who went to my...
Yeah.
Adrian Heath, who was a very, very good friend of mine. Steve Bold, who was from Blurton next door, and Blurton Trentham High always had some good battles in those days.
Yeah,
There was a lot of really good players that came out of this city. It's a shame that we're not producing as many now as we did then.
It's true. I think it was 1989, that was the first Stoke game I went. It was Barnes in the FA Cup, and that was the season when we sold Lee Dixon and Steve Bold to Arsenal. Yeah, and they've just been absolutely, they were superb players for Arsenal. Well, I think it's what you touched on before. It's not sort of just football in Stoke, is it? Cricketers as well.
Dominic Cook and Dean Hadley played in the North South Cheshire League, and I brought a lot of players to this local league. I know friends of mine like Nathan Astle and Mushtaq Ahmed, and my dad played at Norton with Gary Sobers. So we've got a rich sporting history, and I think it's a well-reversed tale. But when I first started at Beswick's Legal, it was John Mickey, the senior partner, looked after Stanley Matthews, Ray Reid and Dennis Smith, and you'd always see people in reception like that. It's good.
And were you involved in sports yourself growing up?
I was, yeah. I was a better running footballer. I was watched by Blackpool, who were then what would be now a championship team, and they spoke to me. My sports teacher at the time said, "You'll never be a footballer. You'll clean boots for 2 years. You're a better runner." So that's probably, and he was bang on right. When you're playing games, that I have been lucky enough with the likes of Adrian Heath and Mark Chamberlain and Ian Krantz and people like that, you realise, the difference in quality and standard. Tremendous.
And you eventually, say you were at Trentham High School, and then you went to Staffs University to study law. What made you go and study law there?
I did 1 year at Cullen College, and that's all I survived. I did business studies, so that was law, economics, politics, accounts, and I couldn't. I was to work 3 jobs as well. Obviously whilst at college, and it was hard. And I decided to go and find a job. And I wrote to, and the careers officer at Cullen College just said, well, you're doing really well in law, why don't you try to become what's called a legal executive? So I only wrote to 2 firms, Bailey, Wayne and Curzon and Beswick, the first 2 in the Yellow Pages. And luckily Beswick gave me an interview and offered me a job. And I couldn't have landed as a better firm really with my interest in sport, because the people there did anything in the sports and media and entertainment world that was around the North Staffordshire, South Cheshire area. So, and they told me to go and get a degree.
Okay. So sorry, guys. So you were working there at the time, were you? And they said,
I was doing the post. I was the clerk. I was, making the coffee and the tea as you do in those days. And so I did a 4-year night school degree.
Okay.
So I was working full time and doing the night school degree, and then obviously I had to take a year out to go to law school. So that was my path. But I lucky to be encouraged by good people.
Yeah. What I would say, because the history of Beswick's, it's been around since like the early 1900s, hasn't it? In Stoke On Trent.
Yeah, it's evolved quite a bit. But one thing we've always done is invest in local people, and I'm quite passionate about that. And I always say that I want to help local people as much as I can. So when people like Alex Nelson went to the Olympics in the 100 metres, we try and get some funding for them, and we do anything we can for local athletes if possible. Yeah. It's not always easy, but I think we, as a city, we do ourselves down a lot. And I think if the people that have been through certain situations and been semi-successful, if they can pass that on a little bit. And also, we have a number of outstanding young people in our law firm, and all who are educated locally at Staffs University, the local people. And I think that's important.
And you talked about funding before. So I interviewed Nathan Heaney, the boxer, a couple of weeks ago. And also I asked him the question about Team GB. Really why he didn't get into Team GB. He would love to have fought to the Commonwealth and the Olympics. And he said it is such a difficult process to get into it. Have you come across that in your role as well?
Yes, we have. I mean, we advised Callum Smith, and we got the world champion. He knocked out George Groves. And then we did a lad called Dalton Smith, who's still fighting. He was in Team GB and should have been going to the Olympics in Tokyo. But I mean, it was what they have to go through is so intense. And he decided to go professional a year early and not go for the Olympics, which was a really tough decision. But then he signed an 11-fight deal with Matchroom. So he's done well, and he's won all his fights so far. So good luck to him. He's a great lad, despite being a Wednesday fan.
Is that what he is?
Yeah.
So you're obviously, as we talked about before, Stokey, born and bred. But I believe, and you're a massive Stoke fan, but I believe your family, your brothers, were huge Port Vale fans.
No, my dad and his 2 brothers. Yeah, my dad and his 2 brothers are from Snee Green, so they were Vale fans. But I was lucky. 2 things: my dad always took me to Stoke 1 week, Vale the other. When I was growing up, we moved to south of the city at the age of 4, and I went. Priory school was pretty much all Stoke. I mean, they had such a fantastic team in those days, all local lads predominantly, and looking at like the Dennis Smiths, the Mike Pedgicks, the John Marshes, they were just phenomenal. And then people like Terry Conroy and Jimmy Greenoff and Alan Hudson coming into the mix. I mean, it was special times. I mean, it was exciting. Watching the big match revisited in BT Sports at the moment, trying to tell a 10-year-old lad that was us. It was interesting the other week, they had the Stoke Arsenal game on. They took 1 fighting relegation and 1 going for the title. And Harry's response was, "Did we go down, Dad?" I said, "No, we were the team at the top, Arsenal were the bottom."
Exactly. And that was just before my era. I say I was, I'm an 80s child, where you touched on the name Ian Cranston before, Overs and Cranston, Butler, Sanford. Obviously the 70s, which is my dad's era. I think it's very hard for people my age and younger to comprehend how good we were. Should we have won at the time? The old League One.
Well, you always felt like we had a chance to. I can remember staying in the booth then for must seem like over an hour. We went to the top of the league. I think Danny Smith scored a goal. We won a game 1-0, went to the top, and we felt like we were going to. And we had all those FA Cup semi-finals, the League Cup win, the European games. That Ajax game I can remember really well at home, and the FA Cup games against Manchester United quarter-final. I always had an argument with Peter Coates that there was certainly over 50,000 people in that day. He says it's 49,000 something. I'm saying I'm sure there's a few more in than that. It was unbelievable games. Watching Stoke compete and beat the team with Dennis Law, George Best, Bobby Charlton. We talk about that team it's amazing. Well, we were better than them.
We competed, didn't we? And I don't know if you've seen you mentioned Stanley Matthews before, and there's a wonderful documentary Stoke mini movie, and it's on Amazon Prime now. And they were saying at the time he almost introduced nutrition and healthy eating. He would run home during training at lunchtime whilst the players would go down the pub, and they'd have like a pie and a pint, and then he'd run back. And what was it like meeting him? I had a question I was going to ask you later on. Of you've met so many high profile people in your time. Is there any one person that you felt like a little kid again? You were like, oh my God, is this real?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, I never saw Stan play, but I remember a friend of mine asked me to get two of his, somebody had written a book about him. It's the first book, not the later one, can't remember. He asked me to get these two books for his father-in-law. And I rang him up and he and said, I've got two books, do you mind if I pop in on the way home? Would you mind signing them? I've never asked for a signature myself, something I regret to this day. And he said, no, you're far too busy, Gary, I'll come to you. And he got into his car in Penkhull, drove to Hanley. And I can remember looking at the office windows, he's putting his money in the machine, absolutely dying, thinking this legend had driven to come and sign two books for me. And it was just so worth. But every time I'm Jimmy Greenoff or Terry Connolly, something like that, I mean, they were just, for me, they were my legends. And obviously, I've got Gordon Banks passing away, obviously, watching him and being your first goalkeeper was something special.
Yeah, and I think there's something about the city. So I'll say I moved away 21 years ago. I just touched it before, living in Liverpool now. But you've got all these, and they were legends of the game, and they're still in Stoke on Trent, aren't they? So you've got Terry Conway. Even come to more the modern era. Lou Macari settled in Stoke. I know Tony Pulis lives down in Bournemouth, but he still does so much for the local region. Why do you think that is?
I think the people are, I think they're tough people, but they're fair and they're very welcoming. You can't get away with much, but also the people will look after you and they'll look after each other. And I think we've got so many. What I like about Stoke at the moment is there's a lot of young entrepreneurs. The city's really had to reinvent itself because the pits, the steel works, the pot banks all closed down. Now we've had some good entrepreneurs, but they're all giving back. People like KMF, Gareth Higgins and Gareth Mobley, and these people who've sold out, Peter Davenport, who've built up businesses and sold them or done really well. And they're supporting things like the Hub Foundation, the Douglas McMillan, and the Don Louise. Tony absolutely loves the people of this city. I mean, I speak to him all the time. I look after Anthony, who's a first team coach at Miami. I've got that right, into Miami at the moment. And he's, Tony's up forever doing things around this city because I think this was his. It's got to have been his favourite time as a manager.
Yeah, definitely. How involved is Beswick Sports and Beswick Solicitors with with the city? Were you involved in the Capital of Culture bid a few years back?
We helped, yes. We sponsored. We put some money into it and we sponsored it. I thought that was important for us. If we could have got it, I think it would have been a big boost. Unfortunately, we didn't. I think that I want people to start taking a bit more pride in where they're from and more pride in the city of Stoke on Trent. Yeah. And I think sometimes it takes. I'm very fortunate in some ways that I travel the world with my job. 35% of my business in the sports management company is overseas in America. But I always enjoy coming back. I'm always very proud of where I'm from.
Yeah, I'm like you. Like say, I mentioned before, I've lived away for a long time. My mum and dad's still down in Stoke. I'm a season ticket holder with Stoke City, and it's still my home. And yes. I absolutely love it. And you've talked about Capital of Culture. I think when Hull in the end. And Stoke just, in my eyes, again, it's just, it's my opinion, Stoke On Trent, it just needs that some sort of huge investment because there is so much culture in the city.
Yes, there is. And again, we just talked about Sid Kirkham earlier and some of his pictures, but I also think, I still love the Arnold Bennett books and stories like The Card because it reflects the city and the culture and the people. But I think that there are some people doing great things here. They just probably need a little bit more help. We're extremely fortunate to have the Coates family because I know they back the local arts and education and everything. So we have some people in the city with money who back the arts and the plays and the theatre, whereas some cities don't even have that. So I think, you have to count your blessings sometimes, but I'd like to see people shout about their city a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I say with your role at Beswick, so was it 1999 when the arm of Beswick Sports was set up?
Yeah, I mean, we were working through the law firm doing odd contracts for people. I remember when Adrian Heath left Espanyol to go to Aston Villa, helped him a little bit, and then I was doing I was actually a litigator. I did quite a lot of work for Amstrad, as they were then, on Sugar's Company down in Brentwood. And a player approached me who was uncomfortable about his agent. He wasn't feeling like he was getting good advice, or probably thought the agent was looking after himself more than he was looking after the player.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to know people in the game like Adrian Heath, and I went and did his deal for him. He moved to a championship club then, quite a big move for him. And we got a cheque off the club for the 5% the agent was due, and the player got more money than the agent was telling he was going to get. In my view at the time, I just felt like the agent was taking a big number for himself and the player was being left short.
Yeah.
And I just so I didn't plan to get into the agency. It wasn't something that appealed to me. But I just saw that there was a chance to do something right. And I thought if you did the job right and did it properly, that word of mouth would get you players, and that's what happened.
And it's fascinating, what you do often that legal advice and also the contract negotiations and the agent side of it. How do you deal with? And there is a lot of criticism, especially on social media, towards agents, and it's probably a lack of knowledge from people saying, as you touched on before, they're in it for themselves, they're in it to make money. How do you sort of deal with that, Gary?
It's difficult because I think there are more bad agents than good ones. I've got to be honest. I think that we've gone from a situation where 3 years ago there were about 400 licensed agents in England, and now over 5,000. So
wow,
there are people out there that don't really know what they're doing. They haven't got the experience, but they can talk, they can sell themselves, and quite often players jump into the wrong relationship, and that can cost them their career. And it's not easy, especially with the young players. I think we've developed a niche for taking on younger players and moving their careers on. I mean, people like Jack Butland at 17 and all the loan deals, and then Andy Wilkinson. I mean, Andy would go anywhere to play a game of football, to Scotland. Don't forget that station, Telford, Blackpool. And then, we did the same with so many others. And I think that's the key to, you've got to fight for them. You've got to make sure it's their careers at the end of the day. I mean, I was just telling the story a couple of days ago about Lewis Neal. Lewis had played 90 championship games for Tony Pulis and Billy Davies, and then went to Carlisle and Shrewsbury. It didn't really work out in League Two. So we took him to America. But he spent about 10 months out of the game with a young family, with no money coming in at all. Eventually, we got him to DC United in the MLS, and he scored the winning goal in the cup final. And I think I made $2,000 out of that deal, but it was one of the best deals I've ever done.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, you've got you did an interview yesterday in the Evening Centre about Lassie Sorensen as well, and he's an absolute beast at the moment, isn't he? Working home, doing all his running.
Yeah, people in football keep telling us what a special player he is, and people are watching. He's such a nice lad, so dedicated. And there's a guy. We have partners in Denmark, and we've also got Daniel Iverson, the young keeper at Leicester, who's on loan at Rotherham at the moment, and they bought Philippe Billing over to Huddersfield, and we work with them on Philippe Billing, and he's in the Premier League. They always seem to have good players, and Lassie's got the chance to be the best of the lot. He's got everything. Right. He's probably a bit too nice, but he lives everything. He lives for football. He lives for what he does. He keeps himself fit, and he just needs an opportunity. And we were very, very close to him to going to church with Paul Lambert last year, because Paul Lambert had obviously gave his Premier League debut at Swansea.
Yes.
And he was, I mean, I went to that game and it amazed me that people like Charlie Adam were giving him the ball with 3 people around him, because they obviously trained with him and realised he can handle it.
Yeah.
And he is. He's an athlete, he's a good size, he's a good defensive midfielder. And I was really excited, obviously not wishing any ill on Joe Allen. But when Joe Allen got injured, Michael O'Neill came out and said, well, it gives us a chance to have a closer look at Lasse Sorensen.
Yeah.
Now, he may not have started, but he would have been in the frame and probably got some minutes. And I think he's probably what a lot of clubs are looking for, an athletic defensive midfielder.
Yeah. Well, you know, what are your thoughts on Michael O'Neill as the manager moment?
I mean, what a phenomenal start. I mean, you know, he's inherited, you know, I mean, the one thing that I know, I've known Peter Coates for excess of 20 odd years. And I think they pay people to manage. And obviously he's come into a club where, I mean, the amount of support they gave to Gary Rowett was phenomenal. The amount of money we spent during that period of time to come straight back up. It obviously didn't work out. For whatever reason, Gary Rowett just didn't. The fans just didn't take to him. He just felt like it was becoming a war between the manager and the supporters.
Yeah.
Nathan Jones couldn't have really had any more given to him. So they've given everything to the managers, and Michael O'Neill's come in and made them into a team, haven't they? Made them into a squad, and their results give people a lot of hope for the future.
Well, I think if you look at the form table now, we're in we're the 3rd best in the Championship, and that is with the squad he has inherited. I know he brought Jordan Thompson in from Blackpool and the young lad from Tottenham Hotspur. Again, in my opinion, he is very much the Tony Pulis mould. He's very composed. He will put his foot down if needed. And I just wondered again, for your thoughts. Should we have appointed somebody like him when we dropped from the Premier League into the Championship?
Yeah, it was a difficult one. I think that I probably know a bit more than I can share in terms of the situation. And I think that there were people lined up that really probably and agreed everything and then walked away, and that's not the club's fault. And that's disappointing. I think we could have had that type of manager, but it's so much stuff goes on behind the scenes that can never come out or be reported, because obviously that's the way that football works, and everybody does it. Yeah. And I don't think that the football club can be, and obviously be knocked for the efforts they went to bring the right person in.
Yeah, and regarding your role in with Beswick Sports as well, what's the biggest deal that you've been involved in and the one that you're most proud of?
The one I'm most proud of and the biggest one you're involved with are probably 2 different things. I mean, I take a lot of like the Lewis Neal one was something I'm very proud of, but I also, in terms of, I mean, the Jay Rodriguez deals I've enjoyed doing. He was a record-breaking signing for Southampton. He was a record-breaking signing for West Brom, and then he's gone back to Burnley. At one point before the World Cup 5 years ago, we had Jack Bolton, the youngest goalkeeper to make his debut for England, who was flying. We had Jay Rodriguez, the top goal scorer in the English Premier League as an English person, going to the World Cup. Yeah, and it just looked. They were all on an amazing career ahead of them. Both have had injuries, and it altered their trajectory. And that's the game. It's hard, because they're good people.
And what is transfer deadline day like for an agent? Is it as crazy as it's made out on Sky Sports News?
Oh, it can be. It can be. I don't think it's been quite as bad the last couple of windows, but I mean, I can remember doing Wade Elliott from Burnley to Birmingham City, where it went through literally. We worked ironically for Birmingham City to move Cameron Jerome to Stoke.
Yeah.
But only if Stoke bought Cameron Jerome could Birmingham afford to take Wade Elliott. And we turned down Sean Dyche and Watford to go to Birmingham with Chris Hughton. Wow. And but literally, I think it was 10 minutes before the window, there was a problem with the Cameron Jerome move. So I could see Wade Elliott standing with Chris Hughton, all excited, and everything had been done. And I'm sitting in the secretary's office, and everything had fallen apart. But I didn't dare tell him because I was hoping. And we had to get. luckily, it all got done with literally 30 seconds to spare. Now, that was quite hairy.
And you know, regarding the current situation, with the terrible COVID-19 we're going through at the moment. Again, I think we just briefly spoke before about players' contracts. So a lot are expiring in June and a lot expiring in July. Obviously, you're very much from the legal side. How is that? I've had many discussions with my friends. How would that, if the season started, I say on the 1st of July, when players are out of contract in June, from a legal point of view, do they have to play for that club, or are they free agents?
No, their contract expires the 3rd of June. They can't be forced to sign an extension.
Yeah.
But also, they were able to move and play for another club during that period of time because the season's still current. So it's, I think that, there's a regulation that allows people to extend contracts for a short period of time. But I mean, if you have a player, for instance, like say a Willian who's at Chelsea, who's got, looking to probably line up quite a substantial deal, are you going to put yourself at risk for your club that you're leaving? That's something that the managers have got to think about. Yeah. I think the season will still be going mid-July in the Premier League because they've got a cut-off date for the Sky money and BT money is 16th of July, so they've got to get as many games in before that as possible, because that's important for the whole of football, by the way, because that money filters all the way down in your parachute payments, all the way down the league to your grassroots football, money that goes to the PFA. So we should all want the Premier League to play as many games as they can before mid-July to make sure that money comes in, because even though they keep more of it than I think they should, I think that if they don't receive that income, we'll all suffer. Stoke City will be one of the clubs who do parachute payments, and that'll be difficult for them too.
Yeah. What are your thoughts then? What will happen? Obviously, because League Two finished, didn't it? What are your thoughts? What will happen with the Championship?
I've always thought the Championship would play, and the reason for that is because if it doesn't play, there'll be too many clubs who will be looking after their own interests that will be trying to there'll be politicking, maybe even legal actions. I mean, it's the chances being voted to the Premier League is worth so much money. We also have this issue with Sheffield Wednesday, Birmingham City and Derby with financial fair play. So if you're Barnsley, Charlton, Luton, and they're not dealt with, then that's and they get relegated. I mean, the Barnsley owner came back and said last time they got relegated, it cost them $7 million. That seems like a big number to me, but whether it means the 2 relegations, I don't know. Yeah. But so there's so much to be dealt with. Really, the Championship is the most complicated league for me.
Yeah,
League One has been a bit of a mess because again, there's a lot of competing interests. I've got Michael Duff, who looked after all his career from Cheltenham, moving to Burnley, and now he's managing Cheltenham. He's taken them from second bottom 15 months ago to fourth top in League Two. Yeah. Speaking to him, it's going to cost them a fortune just to play in the playoffs. Yeah. So, and if Stoke play games, it's just going to cost them money. Yeah. But Stoke could probably afford it because we have such good owners. But if you're Cheltenham Town or if you're Colchester, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds to play in the playoffs without the financial windfall of a Wembley final. And if they don't get promoted, that's going to impact on their budget next year. So some teams might be pleased if they missed out of the playoffs financially.
Yeah. Well, I take it you are busier than probably ever before then, Gary, at the moment.
Well, we've gone through advising players on wage deferrals, wage cuts, what the PFA is saying. We've had advised players about testing. I mean, we've had our Premier League players all got tested last weekend. We've got Stoke players being tested today.
Okay.
And then it's the one thing I've said publicly in an interview with the iPaper is that I haven't spoken to a player who doesn't want to play. And even the ones that have said that if they were concerned about taking it back home, they'd get themselves in a hotel or something and self-isolate and train and go back and go there to keep it away from the family home. So they understand, well, one, they want to play, and two, I think they understand is that for the game to survive in any way, shape or form, we need to get football back, because no one could put a hand on the heart and say, look, we'll be playing in front of crowds again this calendar year, because I'm not sure we will be.
Yeah, and regarding your role as an agent, what sort of welfare do you offer to players? Because mentally it must be challenging at the moment.
It is challenging. I mean, you can't for a minute think it isn't. I mean, I've always been a great believer in sports psychologists, if they're the right one. because I think so much football breeds insecurity, because there's always someone that wants your job. So if you're in the start 11 and someone wants your place, if you're the manager, someone can't wait for you to fail. Yeah. And people come out of the game and it's difficult to adapt to normal life. But we end up talking in this country about the top 5%, the ones who are in the big money and stuff. We forget about the ones going down the leagues. I mean, I talked to the Sentinel a while ago about the people that keep me awake at night. Carl Dickinson, who's at Yeovil.
Yeah.
Carl out of contract this summer, and he's got a young family, and he's never really earned the money that the people that read about in the newspapers. So I'm desperate that Carl Dickinson gets a new contract at Yeovil or a new club, because that means a lot to us. Now, I think that, I know that Steve Fleming, who was a client of mine, he was the captain of New Zealand. He was one of the strongest leaders I ever knew, but he was a big believer in sports psychology. And I think it's a good thing. Some footballers think it's a sign of weakness, but sometimes it's good to talk to somebody on a one-on-one basis who's not got self-interest in what they want you to do.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. I did a podcast interview with Luke Sutton, who used to play for Derbyshire. He released his book Back from the Edge, because he ended up in the Priory, and we got talking about social media, which is talk about sports psychology. Well, it's actually a huge psychological thing for players. Like Luke says, he goes some games now, cricket games, he'll go into the change room, and the players, they're just straight away on the mobile phones, just checking, for reassurance, or trolls as well. Again, with your role with Beswick, of course, people see, well, agents are there to contract negotiations, etc. But do you give advice on things like that as well, regarding social media and how to deal with fans?
We do, and I think it's something that we've had to do more and more, because I think one stupid tweet or one stupid comment can stay with you for the rest of your life. Because people with the internet, people can always find stuff. It gets thrown back at you. I mean, I read a really interesting article in The Athletic about Sean St. Ledger, we bought to Orlando City at one time, but he talked about his move to Preston from Peterborough. If the documentary that they did at the time on Peterborough United, and Barry Fry was,
I remember it.
They said if he'd come out before, he would never have got his move. But I mean, that's nowadays, that is what you do on social media. It's how you behave, how you conduct yourself, how you react to something. There's always somebody that wants to pick something apart. If I like a tweet that someone's put Tom Edwards should be playing at Stoke City, someone's going to jump straight on it and say, like, are you having a go at Tommy Smith? Well, no, I'm going to go at Tommy Smith. I'm just biased about my players.
Yeah. Well, feel free to not comment, Gary, but that sort of just reminded me regarding Kevin Campbell and Tyrese. So Kevin was very vocal on Twitter regarding Tyrese. How did you sort of feel about that when you were seeing tweets and comments that Kevin was making?
Yeah, I think that I can't agree that that's the way to go, if I'm being honest. I mean, I have it from the other end. I have, like, Tom Edwards' mum, Karen, who's like absolutely thinks that, sometimes wishes she wasn't a footballer and sees the stuff because she reads everything on Twitter, and she reads all these comments about her own son who she's brought up, and still a young lad. Only just 21. And I think, and the other thing is, there's so many falsities and so much jealousy about players that a lot of it's absolute rubbish. I remember Clive Clark, when I had Clive Clark. Fell out with Gudjon Thordarson over something. I think Clive had a row with Gudjon's son, I think, in training, and obviously the manager out on him, and he was one of the most highly rated young left backs in the country.
Good, yes.
And there was a thread on the Oatcake saying that he was out in Newcastle drinking with his mates the night before a game. And when we started, and I got made aware of this, and he was sitting in my house.
Really?
Wasn't even in the squad the next day, but he was sitting in my house in front of me. He wasn't actually in Newcastle. And someone's making up this thread about following him around Newcastle. Now, everybody was jumping on that game, disgusting. That's not the way to behave. He's got to be dropped tomorrow. I already knew he wasn't in the squad. So everyone then thought he'd been dropped because it became this absolutely ridiculous story. I ended up taking a Manchester City game and not going to Stoke just because I thought we went to watch Man City in a friend's box. Because I thought, just need to. But how can you control that without biting back? And I have been known on occasions to go on the Oatcake and fight or battle, which is not very professional. But I remember someone having to go about Adi Akinbaye leaving and going to Birmingham at the time, but they knew nothing about the story as to what up to that.
Yeah, and I think that's everything in life as well, isn't it, Gary? You know, if somebody pushes anybody too far, you'll eventually snap. And you know, you will say something. But then on the other hand of the scale, there are those people who are just out there to set the rumour mill going. Has anything like that ever almost scuppered a deal that you were working on?
Yeah, look, many times we've had situations. I remember I was close to taking, I think it was Carla Saab at the time. I never really represented
Carla Saab, Sheffield United, wasn't he? He came to Stoke.
Yeah. But Addy took to Sheffield United, and Burnley and Col and Addy were close. Yeah. And Col was coming to the end, and I think Billy Davies spoke about him, and then something appeared in the press. It was absolute rubbish, and Billy Davies just called it off, just overnight. You know, it was. Can't remember the exact circumstance. It was something that was in the paper, and he just called the deal off. And I don't think Col got a deal like that where he went to, and I didn't do it anyway. I was just trying to help out a friend of Addy's at the time.
Yeah.
So I think it is. You know, I remember so many things get said that you just makes your blood boil.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. You know, we said at the very start of this, you know, the life you've led so far, and you've got so many stories and events you've been through. So, you know, born and bred in Stoke, as we mentioned, doing phenomenally well as the MD at Beswick Sports, and then you get involved in the MLS with Austin Aztecs, which was obviously the franchise. How the hell did that come about, Gary?
Well, I was doing. I was very good friends with Phil Rawlins, who sold his business and then invested in Stoke and the academy at a time when they needed the money. They were desperate for the money, and Phil had done well out in Dallas, and he used to come back, and we used to go out and talk about stuff. And then he came back for a period of time to the UK and was loving going to Stoke. And we you know, and it was nice having him back over here for the 12 months he was back. But for tax reasons, he had to go back to the States and ended up in a place called Austin, Texas, which was beautiful.
Yeah,
my favourite places in America. Although I probably can't go back now, having moved the team to Orlando. But he did he just said to me, he came one Christmas, we were going to Thailand early January. And he said, I'm going to start a team. I want to start a team. What do you want to start a team in America? I knew nothing about US sport, really. I enjoyed the NFL and a bit of baseball and stuff. So So we spent the whole of this trip to Thailand, and it's in the book by an ESPN writer, Defying Expectations, doing a business plan for a team in Austin, Texas. Unfortunately, you know, I took Agent over, who was a friend of mine who just lost as a manager, I think, at Sheffield United, or somebody who was scouted for Newcastle. And we did I loved it, but we could never get a stadium, we could never get any traction, we were top of the table playing really good football under Adrian, and we were getting crowds about 3,000. It wasn't really, and that wasn't the fans' fault. It was just we had to keep moving stadiums every year.
Okay.
And I just said to Phil, look, you're losing so much money. If you want to do something, you've got to move the team. You can do that here. I mean, and it feels horrible to say that with the Wimbledon MK Dons type scenario. But
of course,
that's what we did. And we moved the team to Orlando. There was nothing in Orlando, and Phil didn't want to go there. And I remember him saying that you'll never get me moving to Orlando or Las Vegas. It's just full of British tourists. And I bullied him into it. Yeah. And really, we finished the season at the end of September. By mid-October, we were suddenly sitting in a press conference in Orlando saying we're going to start a team in Orlando, and everyone's looking at us like we're daft. So, and that was a fantastic story, because within a few years, we got to MLS from USL. And we opened 62,500 people at Qatar playing for us. 2 lads from Stoke started, so it was pretty.
Well, it's great. What does your family and like your close friends think of it, Gary? Do they ever say, "What are you doing?"
Well, yeah. My wife's never, because I was over there about 12 times a year. But it's probably the most. You talk about things you're proud of. That's something that will be with me forever.
And what I love as well is you mentioned, 2 lads from Stoke, but you've always had the Stoke roots there as well. You know, with Inchy when he went over, as you mentioned, to Austin Aztecs, and then you appointed James O'Connor
Yeah, well, James was my player. I mean, and the other person is Kay Rawlings, who's born and bred Stoke from here. She was. There's a lot still there at the club now, running the community. So, but James O'Connor, I took some players over there like Martin Patterson, James O'Connor,
Yeah.
but James, from his days at West Brom and Burnley and Sheffield Wednesday, he's such a top bloke, and the way he approached his career, he's a bit Lasses like James, very focused, very driven. There's nothing other than being as successful as they can be. If they're not successful, it won't be because of effort or hard work. And, even when James was playing, I used to have people like Alan Irving and Brian Laws and Steve Cottle, managers, saying he used to write everything down. Tony Pulis, and he was one of the youngest people to get the pro license.
He was young, wasn't he? I think he's only 41 now.
Yeah, yes, yeah, and he's technical director at Louisville at the moment. We were missing each other yesterday. He went into Orlando at a difficult time. Phil hadn't got the money to do. MLS landscape changed. We sold out to the Brazilians, or Phil sold out to the Brazilians. I was advising him. I was on the board, and they built a beautiful stadium. But fortunately, I still have had influence, and I talked them into taking James on as head coach. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. He got fired at the end of last season because mainly, he inherited a pretty poor squad, to be honest. I think, but they probably released 11 or 12 players, and they've got a new team in place. I wish them well. But James is one of my favourite people in the world, just because of the way he approaches life and the way that Cardiff game away, pretty much single-handedly carried us to
that was the one when he come off, was it Mr. Sammy Bangora's backside into the goal? Yeah, and he was a tenacious midfielder, almost a bit like as well like the Glenn Whelan mould.
Yeah.
Very utter professional. You mentioned Kakar before. Could you not have persuaded him to come to the Potteries?
Yeah, I mean that was I've done. It's funny because I know that Talk Sport talked about. I tried to get Alexis Sanchez, to come to Stoke when he was at Udinese before he went to Spain. Yeah, for Tony Pulis, and we'd watched him, and I'd been to Atalanta and watched a game, and he looked phenomenal. And I remember saying to Tony and we tried, but obviously ended up going to Barcelona for some daft reason. And then we had the Yamalenko one at the time. Was at his height. I went to Kiev twice. You do want to try and.
Oh well, that's a famous one, isn't it, Yamalenko? Did that ever come close? That deal?
It did. Stoke bid the clause in his contract.
Yeah.
He wanted to come, but things in Ukraine work differently than the rest of the world. I mean, it was a very interesting time. It wasn't that. I mean, I love Kiev. It's a great city, but it can feel like a dangerous place sometimes, and that was an interesting time.
So you've travelled the world, and of course, it's not just in football that you deal with. What's the best place? I know you mentioned Austin, Texas before. What's the best place you've ever been, and you thought, actually, I could live here?
Well, I love Tampa. I enjoyed part of Orlando. There's a place called Winter Park north of Orlando that's absolutely beautiful. It's like if I was designing a new town and a new place in the middle of Stoke, if I could redevelop Stoke into Winter Park, that would be a dream. I mean, it's just lovely. And I've enjoyed. I've been very fortunate. I mean, we did Lee Chung-yong from South Korea, FC Seoul to Bolton, and going to places like that to do deals, and going to New Zealand to see New Zealand cricket team, going to Cricket World Cups, the West Indies with your players. Been to some beautiful. I love the Caribbean, but I enjoy working in America. I think that obviously, politics aside, I think the Americans are so good. They're so they want people to do well. They celebrate people doing well.
Yeah.
I think in this country sometimes if someone does well, we then start to want to knock them down.
Yeah.
And that's the annoying trait for me. I want to try and help people on the ladder.
Yeah.
The better everybody does, the better we all do. And I think we have to really work hard at that right now with the economy and all the challenges we're going to face.
Yeah.
So I think that's and you learn things from different cultures as well. I mean, I went to India in I think 2000, 2002 when I was doing some work with the Indian cricket team, and it was I learned how to negotiate because the Indians can negotiate.
Really, yeah.
And that's helped me with China recently and things like that. And you pick out that suits you from different cultures and try and use it and bring it back and educate people to make them better, I guess.
Well, have you been dealing, just going back to football, have you been dealing with the Chinese, is it the Chinese Super League over there?
A little bit, yes. Angela Smith, who's probably well known to a lot of Stoke fans, dragged me over. She does a lot in China, and she's quite passionate about it. She helps with private schools and has done well getting Stoke's name all over China.
Yeah.
But it's a tough market, and I think they've got a lot to do. Having visited the clubs, the infrastructure's not great, the stadiums are not great. I think America will be, with the World Cup in 2026, will be a world power in the game.
Yes.
And the younger players, I mean, the Germans have been very, very smart at taking some of the young talent, like Pulisic.
Yeah.
But now you've got some of the players that are playing there. And then they've now started on some of the young English players we've seen with Sancho and others. So they pick them young, but they give them opportunities. I'd like to see more English players getting opportunities in our leagues.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Because there's so much investment in the academies, isn't there? There should be. I think it's good that a lot of our youngsters are going over to Germany and learning the trade there. What is your, going back to being a Stoke fan? We mentioned Leslie Sorensen before. Is there any young prospects that you know of in the academy that you're excited about? Does that striker, is this Sanko who's been linked with everybody? Yeah, no, I mean it's in fairness to Stoke, they work really hard at establishing a good international network. Yeah. And I think hopefully they're reaping the benefits of that. And then people like the Linden, don't we? I haven't watched enough of the 18s. I've got John Hassel and my son George Mellor who watch the 18s, and Ashley Hill who know them well. But I think I think the 18s have had a good season. I'm really pleased that Gareth Owen is a local lad, and he's very passionate. He's got really keen to learn and make the most of the opportunities being given by the football club. And I think, he's been on calls with Atlanta United and people like that. And I think we'll learn from other cultures and try and make ours the best academy it can be. And I want to knowing more local players. We talked about at the start about how many players have gone on from the city to play professional football. We need a few more of those. We do as well, don't we? And that's one thing about the fans here. You mentioned Tom Edwards before, and when he scored his goal was the last season, and it was a championship game, but they just got behind him so much, didn't they? And that's what the fans want to see. Talking about traveling all over the world, what's the most randomest place you've ever bumped into any Stokies? Oh, I've had so many different experiences. I was in Mexico in a really quiet place, and I saw a lad there in his Stoke shirt. But the most random one was on an island in Thailand, in the middle of nowhere, just me and my wife, and we've been dropped off by a boat. One of these when you go to this tiny island, little beach, you can't get on it other than the water. Yeah. And three were wading round with the water up to the stomach, and one was wearing a Stoke shirt. And he'd been to the Hong Kong Sevens rugby or something, and he'd come back to Thailand. And I didn't expect to see it. We'd been sold we'd be on this island on our own and wouldn't see anyone. That is unbelievable. Stoke shirt. That's absolutely brilliant. But what are the plans for Beswick Sports over the next, say, 10 years? What where do you see yourself going? I think that it's a difficult one because the future of the game is under threat at the moment. So we've got to be fleet of foot and flexible. I think that our biggest quality is nurturing young players to a professional career and advising them, and making sure that they hopefully stay on the straight and narrow. And I think that I work predominantly now with clubs and managers and work on strategy and talk to people who were involved in running the game a little bit at different clubs. But the player side, I think, I want to see more English players coming through, playing for the local teams and having a chance at getting into the national team. I'd like the game to become stronger, but be our game. Yeah. And the England team gets stronger as well because we've invested in our own youth. Yeah, I tell you what, Gary, and find the best young player in Belgium or fight off everyone else. But let's put some effort into giving people the opportunities from the city of Stoke. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I tell you what, Gary, over this podcast, your enthusiasm absolutely oozes through, and it's fantastic. It really is. It's obvious, that you're in there to better develop players. Well, I think, if you come away, I have a saying that you always want to be able to sleep at night, and that is by giving people opportunities and doing your job is making people's lives better in a way, giving them better opportunities.
And I love the fact that people like Wade Elliott and Michael Duffy, we've had all through the careers, have come through the careers, and now they're successful coaches or managers, and they still pick up the phone and bounce things off you, and they become friends, and you take pride in what they do. And, that's worth all the money in the world, really.
No, that's brilliant, Gary. One final question for you. Obviously, you've been watching Stoke for many years now. What player, current day or in the past, would you have loved to have represented as an agent, and why?
Jimmy Greenough.
Really? Yeah.
I love Jimmy Greenough. I've got a game on tape here from I was talking about the big match of it. So I think it's the Birmingham City away game. He scores that goal and
that volley. Yeah.
But also Mark Chamberlain when he broke through. For that 2 years at Stoke. I mean, it was so exciting. And then getting in the England team after he'd played 5 or 6 games in the first division for Stoke. I mean, that was good as well, especially the fact he was a Snee Green lad, a local lad as well.
Yeah.
I think it's, but Jimmy Greenough was special.
Yeah.
I mean, my love of football came out of the 1970 World Cup as an 8-year-old, watching the Brazilian team and the Stoke team of the early 70s. I was just so lucky.
Yeah.
You don't realise at the time that it was how magical it was.
And do you think, with the modern day, obviously over the next couple of years, Michael O'Neill could get us back into the Premier League?
I think that we've got the best owners in the country, and I think we'll be back in the Premier League. I just hope it's within the next couple of years, because the amount of money they pump into not only the football club but the local economy, they deserve some success.
Yeah.
I think Peter and John Coates do more than anyone will ever know, and I know I'm a big fan of theirs, and they get a lot of unfair stick in my view, because you can't ask them to put any more money into the football club. It doesn't matter what they earn for the business; they don't have to spend it on the football club.
Well, yeah. Well, Gary, when he said that, I did a show with Angela Smith a few weeks ago, and we were talking about Peter Coates, and I was talking about, I remember during the Britannia Stadium days, the dark days, we lost at home to Birmingham, 7-0 was it? Was it Bristol Rovers did us over at home, and the fans stormed the pitch and tried to get into the boardroom to get Peter Coates out, because that was the time, was it Lindley Catering he owned with obviously Keith Humphreys was on the board. And he went away, obviously the Icelandics came in, and he come back. And he's absolute, and Angela was saying to me, his children were saying, "What are you doing, Dad?" But that's how much he's got the bug, isn't he?
Yeah. His wife said to me, I remember, I think Sunderland away was the last game of the season before when I was there with Phil, and she just came to me, Deirdre Coates, and said, "Do you know any other fools who want to buy a football club?" Because they'd lived through a horrendous time, and they had threats and
absolutely
attacks, and and for him to put himself back into that situation and to spend all that money. And I mean, I always remember those days. I mean, you always, you learn a lot through life. You learn things every day, and you never stop learning. I always say that to my staff. And I remember being at the booth and then singing Waddington Out with all the Stoke fans because he was ex-kid. And then what a stupid thing that was to do. Where did we go from that? And I heard, and at the time with Peter Coates, I remember how much money he spent on people like Carl Lightbourne, 400,000, Ian Crack, all these players. He spent what he had, a lot of, and it wasn't, yes, you could say he picked the managers like Kamara and Ball and people, but he spent a lot of money back in the football club. He always has done, and it's he deserves some more glory days, I think. I'm going to Valencia with Stoke and travelling in the minibus with Peter to the game, and we couldn't get the minibus close to the stadium. I had to walk to the stadium. We had to walk probably 200 yards, and all the fans coming and dropping to their feet and bowing to him and everything. And I thought he was nice. He was embarrassed about it, but it was nice that where they viewed him then. He deserved that.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was talking about that game last night, the Valencia game, and I've seen hundreds of games over the years, but that was a real pinch yourself moment when you walked into Mestalla, such a daunting arena. You were like, we're Stoke and we've made it here.
Well, the fans that night, when I spent a lot of time, I'd been in that stadium on quite a few occasions, but never seen away following them there like there was that night from Stoke. It was phenomenal. They were all over the stadium. At the end, the fire after we went out. I mean, those were fantastic experiences.
Yeah.
And we had games like beating Liverpool. And I mean, I know people think badly of Mark Hughes and the way it ended, but some of the football we had in those times, 3 ninth place finishes and beating Liverpool, Tottenham, United, City. You know, we've had more good times than bad. We've just had a couple of bad years, and I think hopefully John Coates has got the Michael O'Neill appointment right. He looks like he has, and you know that's good. Michael O'Neill is going to be John's, like Peter had Tony. You know, sometimes it takes a combination of people to get it right.
Yeah, and I think one thing which I was so proud of the City, many times during the late 80s, 90s, you go up Hanley, for example, and there's kids walking around with Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool shirts on. But now it's Stoke.
Yeah.
It's Stoke shirts. And I just think for people listening to this, you know, we've got kids like I've got a little 6-year-old Scouser I'm trying to make into a Stoke fan. Is just keep with it. Good luck. That's another conversation. Exactly. Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Behind the Live. It really has. And best of luck for, you know, everything you do in the future.
Thank you, and good luck with your show. Cheers.
Fantastic. Take care, Gary. See you now. Bye. And that was another episode of Behind the Live podcast with myself, Adam Lambert. Please give me a follow on Instagram at Behind the Live podcast, Facebook, Behind the Live podcast, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button below as well as the like button. I'll be back soon for another episode. For now, take care.